And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
It's time. It's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. The only way to do this, folks, is to shed our conventional thinking. That's tough, and we're going to talk about that tonight. We have to shed our conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. I'd like you to think about that sentence now, that quote. That's mine. I didn't read it anywhere, didn't plagiarize it. I want you to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action, just like the Declaration of Independence says to be. Only after we recognize, and it's tough to recognize this, folks, very, very tough, because we're setting these paradigms, and we're going to be talking about brainwashing a little bit tonight. But only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. But see, this is not an entertainment program. I hope I'm entertaining, but it's not intended to be entertaining. This program is just about that, about logic, about thinking, about who we are, about who we think we are, about how to think. That's what this program's about. And you see, folks, I'm the Chancellor of the University of Logic, and welcome to Liberty Talk Radio. I'm Joe Cristiano, and the University of Logic is better known as Cristiano's Conservatory, correcting convoluted conversations. Welcome. Yesterday, I was driving home from my coffee shop, my favorite watering hole, and got a hearing loss. Bing! Right ear just went out. Bing! Just like that. And my wife, being an audiologist, of course, she brought me over to the office, and she ran all sorts of tests on me, and she said, "Uh-oh, got a problem. Looks like a bigger problem." So she got together with a ear, nose, and throat physician, and they said, "Yep, we know what he's got. We know what he's got." And they have me on heavy-duty steroids right now. Now, typically, either one or two things happens. Either you just go bananas, you bounce off the wall, or you just crater. And I think I'm cratering. I don't know. But I said, I don't want to take the steroids. It's too much. It's a ton of stuff I got to take.
Well, I noticed your biceps were bigger when you came in today.
Are you kidding me? I'm back, I'll be back. But, it's I said, I don't want to take it. And they said, fine, don't. They said, you don't have to take it. Then you will never get your hearing back. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Anyway, we'll try. So I'm going to ask you to bear with me today. I'm really going to try to get through. We do have a guest with us, and she's in the studio right now, Linda Murphy. I'm going to give her an introduction a little later on, because I'm going to have a segue program right into that, right into what she has to talk about. We're going to be talking about the school system, Common Core, and the way we think. All right? But often I have questions posed to me on a regular basis, because I'm a talk show host, and for some reason say, "Oh, you're a talk show host, you should know this." You know everything, and they ask me about the economy, and they ask me about the finances. A lot of people say, I have really, a guy just Saturday said, I have, this amount of money. He said, what should I do with it, And I'm a financial advisor. I said, I said, I can't tell you what to do with your money. He says, well, what's going on? I'm confused. He says, things don't seem to be correct. He said, things are really squeezed. He said, I'm getting squeezed on my job. I can see what's happening around me, but I hear a lot of good news, and the stock market's doing well, and apparently had an opportunity to invest in another mutual fund, And I said, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I've been addressed in that fashion so often. I've decided, right before we get to you, Linda, let me just rant about this a little bit. If you look, if you try to study this, you'll probably go mad, because I study this and I've gone absolutely mad. If you look at the economic indicators, and I'm going to fumble around. You think I would have been prepared better than this? And I'm going to fumble around.
Well, you have your research director, Preston. There.
Yeah, I know.
He can
Preston's
find
here.
Yeah,
if someone would just wake Preston up, and then maybe he can be some
wake
help.
Up, Preston.
Yeah.
Well, I heard him say I don't know earlier, and I've never heard him say that.
And I'm gonna find the sheet of paper because
So,
this is
really,
critical to the conversation.
You know how critical the situation is then.
Yeah.
Very morning,
Folks, you're just lucky you're not here. Well, here we go. Okay, I just wanted to give you an idea of really what I do during the week. If you look at the economy, people say there is no such thing as the economy. It's made up of all different. We measure the economy. There is an economy. It's made up of indicators. We try to determine what's happening to the economy with indicators. And I'll give you an example. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There are 20 major indicators that are used. And in fact, if you go to the website, American Institute of Economic Research, they'll spell all this out to you. You got to be really good to understand this. I ask a lot of questions. I drive them crazy and all my economist friends crazy because I'm not that smart and I just don't understand it all. But I'll give you an indication. There are three segments of these three categories: leading, lagging, and what they call coincident indicators. And I'll just give you a flavor for what makes this whole thing up. Manufacturing supply prices, ratio of manufacturing and trade sales to inventories, vendor performance, slow delivery diffusion index of common stock prices. That's one of them. That's one that we all recognize. We go to that's the leading indicators. Of course, the M1 money supply, yield curve, and stuff like that. Then you have the coincident indicators. You have non-agricultural employment, index of industrial production, personal income, less transfer payments, blah, 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 blah. Then you have lagging indicators, which include manufacturing trade inventories, commercial industrial loans, consumer debt to personal income. And I can go on literally for an hour and just talk about each one of those. If you look at all of the indicators, there's the 20-some-odd indicators, you'll find that by the numbers, they are 95% of them are improving, the total. I think there's only about 2 or 3 of the 20 that are not improving. So you deduce from that the economy is getting better. Now, when you look at those numbers, you go, so, geez, everything is getting better. And then when reality hits, you say, well, it just doesn't seem to be that way. And it's very, very confusing. Let me see if I can help unravel some of that. These indicators are the results of. And the results of what? Of the government pumping in trillions of dollars into the economy. Now, they say they buy 85 billion, whatever, but the government does a lot more than that, and there's a lot that we don't even know about. In fact, there was a few weeks ago, there was a hearing, and the Army was asked about, I think, only $3.7 trillion, and they couldn't find it. But I mean, 3.7 trillion. Gee, I lose that weekly. My wife does that at the grocery store. You know,
exactly.
Tell them to look on the top drawer.
Yeah, the top drawer. Yeah, it's in the
might
top
be there.
drawer. Yeah, and so I'm just saying that you can only trust the numbers as far as you can trust the government giving you the numbers. And so, although I don't think these are bogus numbers, I think they're real numbers, and there are people all over the government. They're analyzing these numbers and whatever. And I really don't think that they've fudged or anything like that. But you have to understand what's behind the numbers. In other words, this is the quantitative analysis. Then you take to the qualitative analysis. And what it tells us is that, yes, jobs are improving. But if you were an engineer at one time and now you're working at Walmart, it's even Steven as far as the numbers are concerned. Do you understand that? You know,
you
work
mean
from an
somebody
engineering job
employed,
to now working part-time at Walmart.
Employed is all they go by.
Employed, fine. We're even, right? Now, if you get 2 jobs, one at Walmart and one at Kmart or something like that, that's 2 jobs, employment is up. I mean, you know, you could play this game all different ways. That's probably not right, folks. Don't call me on that one. So I'm just saying that
I wouldn't put it past them.
Things are not right. And what I tell people is that, listen, I study the economy enough that I probably know more than most. I'm not an economist. I'm not a financial advisor, but I probably know more than most. And I know that to be a fact because I've been doing this for years and years. I've spoken to hundreds of people. And I say what you can't do is you can't fool Mother Nature. Now, you want to call it the natural order of things, God, or, you know, whatever, however you want to call it. Let's just call it Mother Nature for the sake of discussion. right? There's only so much that you can only fool Mother Nature so much, and then after a while, Mother Nature gets really hacked off. And when Mother Nature says, it's time to equalize everything, the consequences are phenomenal. Now, right now, let me give you just one example, and then we'll move on. The stock market's doing so great, right? It is higher today on an adjusted basis than it was in 1987, right before that gigantic crash in 1987. It's reaching the same feverish pitch that it was in 1999, the dot-com crash.
Uh-oh.
Let me give you something. I own Royal Dutch Shell stock, right? The largest corporation in the world if you take all the composites, right? Their price-earnings ratio is 9-1. Pretty good, right?
Yeah, very good.
Amazon, it's going for $66 a share, somewhere around there, right? Amazon is going for $387 a share. They have a price-earnings ratio of 1,402. By the way, anything over 15 is considered high.
Man, wow.
You see where I am? Now, we can talk about this for days and hours. But
now, what is that? That's the
price
amount of what the stock is going for is compared to the amount of income.
That's correct.
And there's a
price-earnings ratio, very simple number.
Okay.
Very simple number, right? So if you have a company that has a price-earnings ratio of 6, that's pretty good, right? Now, once you get to like 23, most analysts say, all right, let go, 23, too high. Amazon is at 14, reaching 1,500.
Wow.
Went up in price. It's 1,500. So I'm just saying that when you see these numbers, you got to be very careful. You got to be very, very careful. The problem that we have today, folks, is that we don't have a place to escape. You sell your stocks, you put it in cash? No, I don't think so. You put it in bonds? I don't think so. So you really have a problem. And you know where I'm going with that. Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest because what we tend to do is we're all damn brainwashed, every one of us. I've been brainwashed since I was a kid. I'm going to talk about that. We're going to have a break in a second. But right after the break, I want to talk about brainwashing and how it affects, us and how it affects the way we think, what we do, and why we accept Common Core the way it is. Okay, let's take a break now. We'll come right back. If someone had asked me why we no longer have a truly free country, I would say it's our fault. It's because of us. Now, I know people get angry. So what do you mean by that? What's the communist bum you? No, I mean that. And I put myself in that category. You see, what if we all thought the way we're supposed to think? Unimpeded by false belief systems, by thoughts that we were brainwashed with, that we carry with us.
Manipulated.
Manipulation and all that. You think any of these clowns would be in office? No, we wouldn't have voted one of them in. Not one. Absolutely. In fact, when it came time to vote, that maybe for president, maybe 3 or 4 people would vote in the entire country, if people were thinking.
What if we were raised to be individuals instead of programs?
What's that?
The school programs us. What if we were actually taught to be individuals?
Oh, no, God forbid. No, that's why I said we should have kindergarten. Kindergarten is the only time we ask kids, the children, to be creative, right? Be creative, write, do this, do that, do that. In first grade, you sit down, memorize, and obey. And let me get to that for a second. Just hold off on a comment and say, I said, you see, we're all brainwashed. When I was young, I was raised in a typical Italian family, a real Italian family in Harlem. Everybody, an Italian, whatever, And if you ask my father, what's the best nationality in the world? What do you think my father would have said?
Irish.
The Lithuanians. No, of course not. And he had a point score. I swear he got a point scoring system. He didn't say that, but to me it was a point scoring system. No, I'm not kidding you. The Germans gained so many points, the French so many, the English, I tell you, the English didn't get many points with my father. Scale 1 to 100, they were about a 2.4, And, but, they come from war-torn Europe, and they develop these biases, and they transmit these biases to the kids. Now, my sister bought into that 100%. My sister is 100% Italian this, Italian that. And because my sister was that way, guess what I was? Guess what I was? I was the opposite. I believe nothing. You got to be all out of your mind. And really, and I think that's why I am the way I am, because I've always been the contrarian in my family. I've been the contrarian in school, where I got thrown out a few times. My mother, she's still, my God, she's an angel, but I put her through hell with that. And yet, and at work, I was a contrarian. I was always the guy against the grain every single time. And I realized that all comes from my family upbringing, in that either you bought into this or you didn't. There was no middle ground. I mean, you couldn't. How do you fight a point scoring system? How do you say, well, it's sort of good, but it's not analytically perfect? No, you say either it's stupid, which I thought was stupid, but that was my father from where he came. Now, I just say that. And then they sent me to what? To a church. Well, what church did I go to? The church of my choosing? No, of their choosing. And when I go to that church, they want the kids real young. Why? Because they don't want to ask any questions. The guys come out with all these robes and all these
You're
rupees.
very obedient.
Man, these guys are awesome. I mean, they're not awesome. Look, I mean, they're awestruck. You're awestruck when you see them. They come out and the organ plays and you're sitting there and you're shaking. I mean, this is horrible stuff. And I was an altar boy. I know what you're thinking. I never stole anything off the altar. I said I never did. I often wondered, because the gold chalice was in the what do they call in the little box there.
I forget it.
I forgot.
I'm not kidding.
I can't. Anyway,
we're
and I said,
religious.
I wonder if I can get one. But I always thought that if you put your hand in there, like it would blow up or something, But anyway, so when I went to school, what happened? I got indoctrinated again. So I'm indoctrinated when I was at home. Then I go to school, right? And what happens? I'm asked to memorize. Hated school, memorized the crap. I didn't pass all the time. I will never forget the time. One time, really, I got an 88 on a test. The family went, there was a feast in my family. Joey got an 88 on a test. He passed the test, And I just hated all that stuff. And then I go home, and what do? I watch Flash Gordon. That was the only thing that, to me, was real. I loved that. I never missed Flash Gordon, and Ming. I was on Ming's side, by the way. Destroy the earth, yes, But so you watch television, you're brainwashed there, all right? Howdy doody and all that stuff. And then you get older, you watch the news, right? And then you get brainwashed again. Now, could you tell me, is there anyone that's not brainwashed to heck? I mean, it takes a lot to say, my family, nice people. I mean, wonderful, good. You couldn't find better people in the world. Prejudice, you bet. But people won't say that. Your religion, people will defend it to the earth. Can't defend it. There's nothing to defend. And in Christian religion, there's 1,000 different sects in the United States. Someone's got to be wrong. I mean, I'm sorry. One person's got to be wrong in that whole thing, right? And I'm not knocking religion. I'm just saying I want you to think about this, right? Then you go to school, and what do you think they teach you? History sucks, right? History sucks because they're not telling you the truth. Because if they told you the truth, it would be the most fascinating subject in the world.
Very intriguing.
Absolutely fascinating. I am now reading, at the age of 70, folks, and a half, I am now reading history as it really happened, and I'm captivated by it. Mm-hmm. And this book, they say, when they introduce it to the schools, the students become history buffs. They start talking, debating. We don't want to talk. We don't want to think. We don't want to debate. Then we go home and we watch television. And what do? You watch, my wife likes to watch The Voice and stuff like that. Not too often, I hate it. Because all you hear is cheering and cheering and cheering, and everyone does everything perfectly, I think they all suck, and I can't stand them.
Mutual admiration.
I just say,
society. Sounds like it.
The mutual admiration.
No, they all suck. I mean, you know what.
They're not all that good.
And the news runs commercials, and we're supposed to take those seriously because they support the news station, and those same commercials are on the TV shows.
Absolutely. See, so you have all of this working against you, and what you do is you turn your brain off, right? So you have the government. You have through the schools, the government through the commercials, government through the news. Then you have your parents that have already been brainwashed, and then you have obviously your religion that's going to teach you what really happened from their perspective. And then you ask someone, "Would you please think critically?"
It's a big order.
Who are you?
I want every one of my listeners to really sit down. Now, if for you to change, it's going to take an epiphany. I want to tell you one more story, and then we'll go to heartbreak, and then we'll go to you, Linda. Okay. I spoke for years on management. I had a degree, and I actually graduated college, finally. My father almost killed me. I swear to God. Oh, my God, I think it's going to kill me. But I finally squeezed through. But I had a degree in management, right, the business administration, Bachelor of Business Administration. Then I studied management. I was fascinated by it because, you know why? I didn't understand it. I had a degree and I didn't understand it. So I used to give speeches on it. And I read every book. You name it. I tell you, there's very few books, regular books. There's a lot of garbage books out there that I read. Every year I read several books. On days off, I would stay home, and I did what I should have done when I was in school, is I stayed home and I outlined the books. Every book I read, I outlined. And I was reading, but yet, and I used to give speeches on management. I enjoyed it, but I never felt comfortable doing it. Now, folks, you're going to think this is absolutely crazy, and I don't expect you to understand this. And one day I was reading a book by management, Peter Drucker. It's called Management. It's the Bible of Management. It's about 907 pages long. I was on page 786. And I was sitting there on a Monday. I said, what am I doing? I'm still outlining books, at the age of about 50 years old. And I'm still outlining books and reading. But I said, why am I still reading books? Why wouldn't there be one book on management? Why do I need 25, 30 books that I've read on management? And I don't feel right. You know when you understand something explicitly, you feel good about it.
Like you're connected.
Yeah, I was disconnected from the subject, and I talked, and they paid me money to talk about it. And so this is exactly what happened. This is a God's honest truth. I'm not making this up. This is not radio talk. I'm sitting there on the couch, and I said, well, I'm going to go to the men's room. I drank too much coffee. I'm carrying the book with me. I said, maybe I'll knock off a few pages in the bathroom. I hate to be disgusting. I don't mean to do that. And I walk out there, and in the hall, it was dark, and I didn't even turn the light on. I'm walking in the hall. All of a sudden, I got struck. And I'm not kidding. This is not radio talk. This is the God's honest truth. I swear to God. I stood there, and I leaned against the wall, and it was like a rogue lightning bolt came through the house. You find these things happen, and it hits you. And I thought that's what happened. I thought I got struck by rogue lightning. It went through the house. And I stood there, and it knocked me against the wall. And I stood there and went, oh, my God. Oh, my God. And I'm sitting there, I'm breathing, going, oh, my God. And all of a sudden, I realized what happened. I said, I understand. I now understand why I'm so uncomfortable with all these books. I understand management. I understood it. The whole thing came to life, and it was the most unbelievable feeling I've ever had in my life. And I said to myself, the reason why I never understood, after studying for years on management, was there's no such thing. And when I said that, I could have flown. I mean, no wings, I could have flown off the ground. You see, you have to manage your money, right? You don't manage your money out the window. Manage inventory, has legs. Manage the data processing, goes bye-bye and never lands, right? But there's one thing you can never manage people. And when I gave a speech to the top executives of Tulsa on that, a guy at the end of the speech raised his hand and said, Mr. Cristiano, I beg to differ with you. I said, don't beg, but just differ. I said, thank you very much. I said, I have one question for you. You mind, it's a little personal. He said, no, go ahead, ask. I said, how well do you manage your wife? That was the end of the conversation.
Exactly.
Okay? All right, end of the conversation. All right, we're gonna come back with Linda, and you don't have to listen to me anymore because I'm rambling like crazy. Thank you very much. Don't do it. So what we need to do, I'm going to stop ranting now. We're going to introduce Linda Murphy. And almost gave another Linda's name out. But I want you to recognize that truly understanding takes more than oh, yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Yeah, I guess I'll change. No, it's closer to an epiphany. And when it does, you can't go back. Folks, I can't go back to think about management or the principles of management as I did before. I think 99% of the books out there are bunk anyway. Even by the best, they're bunk, okay? Because you just cannot the reason why there's no such thing as management, because you cannot manage people, you can manage things. But once you have to come to those realizations. What it requires for you to become a free thinker and this will annoy many people, is to abandon all of your belief systems. Now, don't go there. I want to believe in God. Don't go there, please. You know what I mean. You have to abandon, and you can't do that. Very, very difficult. I know people have told me they haven't done it at all, but they think they have. It is very, very difficult. And when we get there, then we can say, hey, I truly have been indoctrinated. You know, I've been brainwashed. And you have to, what do they call when they put people in, when they unbrainwash people? What do they call that? You know.
Deprogram.
Deprogram, yeah, deprogram. You have to go through a deprogramming process, but only you can do that. No one's going to lock you in a closet and do that, okay? So we're going to take the one aspect of brainwashing, and that's the school system. And with us this evening, we have Linda Murphy. Linda Murphy ran as the state superintendent of schools in 1994. I mentioned that only because she got 49.5% of the vote. You know, she almost made it. She was the education advisor in the governor's office and later the deputy commissioner for labor for workforce education and training. She's been involved in nearly all aspects of learning programs promulgated by the state and otherwise. Currently an education consultant and certified examiner for SOI, which is the structure of the Intellect Learning Abilities Test and component of Common Core, and an opponent of Common Core.
Right.
And with that, Linda Murphy. How you doing, Linda? Thank you for being on our show.
Great, thanks.
Well, what I said, does that strike a chord with you?
Well, I agree that much of what we have in public school systems is programming of the mind, of behavior, a very restricting type environment. However, we have pockets of innovative teachers, creative people, free thinkers who have the freedom to teach.
All right, let me stop you there because when I hear that, I say, fine, but in the school, in the institutions that we have now, it would seem that this would be heresy and people would be chastised, released, or whatever. How do they do that? How do they integrate that in the institutions that are so...
It depends on the administration where you are, because I've taught in different school systems where I did have freedom. And that is possible now. But where we are headed is not going to be possible because we have a restricted, rigid, and very regimented system coming into place with Common Core. Now, I'm not saying we haven't had this problem already to a great extent, but it's going to become much more so. And the dictates of what the system will entail will be driven by corporate determination, because this is really a workforce training program instead of an education plan. Instead of educating, the idea now, of course, is equal opportunity to learn and unlimited opportunities to be fully educated. Now, does that happen all the time and in every way? No, it isn't. But what we're headed to is more restrictive in that it will be education to a degree to read, write, and do math, but much more it's a training process that corporations will predetermine the type of worker skills they would like to see. So I'm very concerned about where we're headed. I'm concerned about where we are, but I'm more concerned about where we're going.
Boy, you know, I'm trying to wrap I hear it. You know what, when you say that, I can't help but thinking of the old communist black and white films we used to watch with the kids memorizing stuff, you know, for a particular reason. And maybe I'm being unfair. How do they determine what should be in the curriculum? Shouldn't we be developing minds and not skills at the young age?
Exactly. And this is what, you know, many teachers are becoming very upset at seeing what's coming ahead, because they've had the freedom to teach to a pretty good degree within their classroom. Now, I'm not saying everyone is creative and out of the box in their thinking, But there has been the opportunity for that within the system we've had to a pretty good degree.
Yeah.
What we're headed toward is such a regimented control of the skills that will be measured in what they're calling an accountability system. And as you just said, you don't really manage other people's lives well. There's not a way to do that. And that's really the end game here, is a behavioral, intellectual, and skill set to be molded in such a way that workers will form the skills that they want at the end of the process. In other words, it's an outcomes of having workers that are equal in skill and ability at the end of the process, instead of an equal opportunity to learn at the beginning of a process.
God, that's worse. You know, really, that's worse than I thought it would be.
It is.
Absolutely worse than, because what they are expecting today, when you have these children 15 years from now, it's changed. How do they change? They change that every year. Say, oh, sorry, we really don't need you to know that. We need you to know this now. And do they hopscotch back and forth? I mean,
this is a whole new thing that's coming into place now. It won't be fully implemented until next year, when the testing is put in place through Measured Progress, which is the testing company that was just contracted by our State Department of Ed, State School Board, for $34.5 million, a 5-year contract for testing. But the testing is not just at the end of the year. It's at 4-week intervals, maybe 5-week intervals. I don't know if we'll even have flexibility on that, but it's frequent tests. Those are interval testing, but also a bank of items that teachers are supposed to integrate into the instruction to test really on a daily basis, to get measurement feedback about the student performance and change the instruction to bring up the areas where they're not performing well. And you'd think, well, that is academic, reading, writing, and math, but these are work skills that are integrated in to math so that a student wouldn't just calculate correctly, but that they would have a certain process of working the problem out. And it's the process they're measuring, not just can they calculate.
Ah, okay. All right. What if you only have 51% of the students in high school in the major cities, and including Tulsa is considered a major city, graduating, of what good is this program?
Well, very good question. If we're not successful with the system we have now, how do we know that the motivation, determination, the participation of the student, as we talked in our last show, how will that be there when it's not there now? I don't know. And it's not going to be engaging curriculum, not interesting curriculum, because in the reading, which we have now, the standards for English language arts, in that, it's requiring first graders, according to the standards that we've adopted in this system, first graders will get half of their reading material in instructional material, which is very industrial, informative, instructional material. First graders don't want to read that.
What do you mean by that?
Instead of literature, like Huckleberry Finn and stories about Johnny and the puppy dog running down to the creek, and Susie
It's just
baking.
like socialism. It's double talk.
What are they going to do with Dr. Seuss? That's what I want to know.
Well, that's literature, and for half of the time you can have literature, but the other half
what's a first grader going to do with technical reading?
They're not going to be interested in reading, and I think there will be few readers that come out of that process.
Well, what's happening to those children, those non-graduates of high school that are dropping out in the sophomore, junior, and senior year that are not graduating? They're not getting a degree, and they're hitting the streets, and you know what they're doing. You know that some are getting jobs, some are getting labor jobs, some are going into illegal jobs, some are not doing anything, and some are staying home.
I don't see a good result with this plan at all. I do not see that improving this situation that we already have a problem with, dropouts in Tulsa Public Schools. 60% of the fourth graders in Tulsa Public Schools read below their grade level. 60% now. And so the Common Core system is supposed to be, the answer But no, and it is not being created. It has not been designed by people who have been successful teaching in the classroom. That's not where it came from. It's come from corporate entities that have representatives in the panel that wrote the standards. People who are part of the National Governors Association has had the oversight of this through the organization called Achieve. And when you listen to what they say, they've got ideas about what they think they're integrating in that is a paradigm shift, a new way of presenting data and so forth. But as an educator that has taught children to read and seen children that didn't read well and finding out where their blocks are and helping them become successful, there's nothing in this program that appeals to me.
Well, I work for large corporations, and decisions made by upper management, large, for internal stuff, not talking about product marketing or whatever, are second only to the decisions that the government makes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're all horrible. None of them ever work. Mm-hmm. Now, why this program when we had No Child Left Behind?
Right.
I mean, that was the end all, and no more problems. Let's get on to something else. What happened there? Why did we look at No Child Left Behind and said, hey, numbnuts, this didn't work.
Right.
You think your next numbnut program is going to work? I mean,
it didn't work, and this is following on the same path. And what No Child Left Behind gave us across the nation was an accountability with students having to pass tests and take tests when they're not even prepared to take the test, like special ed students being required to be tested when they could not do that level of work.
Well, there was cheating involved. People were stealing.
All kinds
they were
of
selling
problems.
tests. I tell you, if I was in school, believe me, I'd be the number one. I'd be the bookie for tests. I really would. I'll be honest with you. Put me in jail. No, I hate this stuff. I'll do anything to screw up the system. I still am the same way.
Well, we know that the term.
Look what I done to 1170 KFAQ. They used to be a respected program.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, Caitlin.
No, I was going to say that, we know that the term unexpected consequences, unintended consequences, the law of unintended consequences. That's what happens with a lot of these big programs. In fact, any big top-down solution to improve education has failed. We have not had one that was successful. So we need to stop doing that, free people up, free up the creativity and the opportunity for people to actually inventively and innovatively in their own school district bring in things that have been successful. We do want children to read, write, do math, know some things about history, learn, like you said, interesting stories of history that are factual and not this rewritten history that has a political agenda behind it.
Emotional.
And that's where, even though we have problems, exactly, pulling on them emotionally to draw them in so they'll change their political view.
It's
That's
emotional,
integrated.
it's not based off of thought. It's just
Right, and that's happening in
reaction.
some of the curriculum.
Linda,
That's true.
This is what troubles me about the whole thing, guys, is that you've got a central. It's just like the federal government trying to do something for states, and down
Exactly.
to right? You got this so-called brain trust that's running things. So if they want the masses to believe a certain thing, they're going to tell the teachers and the school administrators, this is what you're going to teach about what our political system is about and what science is about and what, all of these things are about. And it's coming from a top down, and
Exactly.
it's so far away. It's in
Centralized
Washington.
power.
and you better tell them
That's
about the
the fear.
Holocaust. You got to read about it.
What really bothers me is like I listen. I've started businesses. Right now, I'm an owner in 3 businesses. All right, I drive myself nuts doing that. But I'd have to say that I don't think I can draw anything from what I've learned in school with my businesses. Everything I did is because I had a desire to do it, or I had an idea, or I tried to help someone out and didn't work, and I had to throw myself in, salvage it, or whatever the case may be. That been very hard roads, but I don't recall ever saying, "Well, I did this because I learned this in school." I don't seem to draw anything that I get from school. Why is that? Is it that I just forgotten and I really am drawing this information from school? Everything I learn, I learn on my own. And it seems that the schools don't allow us to do that, to use our own minds. I had to memorize all this crap just so I can get the diploma, get the hell out, and get a job.
Well, I do agree that that can be a problem and is a problem in a lot of school situations. But there are teachers that are innovative and creative, and they realize that, you know, they do not teach a student everything they need to know about life. And they realize that the skills of reading, writing, and math are foundational skills that then you need to educate yourself. You need to be able to research and think. And when you come into a situation where you have cognitive dissonance, where you have something going one way and a completely contradictory information, you have to be able to discern, you know, which way is correct, get more information, and make a decision. So there is some understanding. I think what we're getting, the good thing about this very bad system, Common Core, which is standards and testing that will be fully implemented statewide. We are seeing resistance in New York. There are thousands of teachers, parents, I will say people who have been sheeple, just following along. Everything's okay. I'm getting my paycheck. We're just teaching. We're just doing this routine thing. Finding out, hey, we're getting ready to be under the thumb of someone else outside of our state, outside of our district. We are going to have no control, and it's being changed in such a way that I'm going to have to be robotic and follow a scripted program.
Right.
And it's causing people who have been asleep to say, wait a minute, my freedom is being lost.
Right. Okay.
Well, gradually
It's a
it's
freedom
been
issue.
being lost anyway. But we are now, it's like I believe about Obama as president. Many people, where did the Tea Party come from? Where did the grassroots uprising saying our taxes, our lives now, our health care system, doctors are not going to be able to comply with this. We're losing our medicine. Why? Because of the centralized control that's being crunched down on us through the federal government. Now, this is what it is with Common Core, but in this case, we've got governors and corporations who are leading this, but it did not go through our state legislature, did not go through our local school boards. They have bought into a concept, which I say is the law of unintended consequences. They are not educators. They do not read the standards and really understand how that is changing what a teacher does in the classroom in a negative way, and they do not know what's in the test. Nobody's even seen the test. But I study what the people who write the test say their goals are, what they say they're doing, and they're trying to bring up what they call the achievement gap between minorities, certain classes, certain groups, some certain demographics. But they're doing that in this way, by bringing the bottom up and making it harder abstractly for young children who are not developmentally ready, and they're bringing the top down, where the top level performers in academics, and so they're making a narrow passage here, and they think they can get everyone through that. They can't.
But you know, if it doesn't incite the mind, those kids, especially in inner cities that are dropping out of school now because they're bored and
Right.
and the teachers are not qualified, and then you have this program, it's going to make it
You know
even
what?
more
Joe,
unqualified.
You know, as when I was in school, what I have a problem with about education is you keep changing it. I used to get frustrated as a kid because every year there's something new. You know, you re-engineer these kids, you re-engineer them, and it's like a warehouse factory that keeps changing the course of how they're going to manufacture the project from year to year. And this is what they're doing. They're screwing these kids up. They need to go back to basic learning and knowing why you're learning what you're learning. That's the biggest problem, because if you're a real smart kid, you want to know why you're learning this.
Well, and the kids have to be inspired, too.
Corporations,
Yeah,
even
right.
robots.
See, they're not
Exactly.
being, you
So
can't
even if you're a
inspire
good,
people. Right.
even if you're a good student, you're brought down to the same level. It's because you're supposed to think the same way.
Right.
Yeah, a math teacher that's any good will teach you the formula, but he'll teach you why that formula is important, and then what it's answering, and how you can apply that formula to learn something. Not just, you know, you put the brackets here and you multiply this by that, and you know you got this formula and you got to do it every day. it gets boring. I just say, "Hey, I'm out."
Who's it?
Doesn't make any sense to me.
The guy who owns Virgin Airlines and he's
Yeah,
the third
yeah.
richest, Richard.
Richard Branson.
Branson.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I heard him speak at when I was up in Minnesota, and they asked him about his education. He says, "Well, I never went to high school." He says, "I couldn't because I was dyslexic." And he told stories. It was fascinating. It was heartwarming. But he understood the basics, but he was inspired to do things. And it seems like, what about our legislators? How come they're not saying, "Hey, not in my district"?
They are definitely getting on the ball. We're getting a lot of
It did-
legislation. We've got a Senate bill.
It did not go through.
It did not go through them. What they put into place was the wording, which the Common Core standards were not even written. So instead of a Common Core of knowledge, facts, and information, this was the system that was brought in before it was even written. So under Governor Henry, with Sandy Garrett was the state superintendent, the application was sent in, and in the application, you had to put in place the law that would allow this to come into place to compete to get the money. We didn't get the money, but they put it in place.
Yeah.
It's all
if
a big
if a
trick.
vote was taken,
A big trick.
If a vote was taken Monday, how would our legislature
Well,
vote?
Monday, we would probably still have it, but by the time we get to the end of this session, I hope we don't. We've got a Senate bill that's been filed by Senator Fields, Osage County, Senate Bill 1146, which will stop the standards and the assessments. That's what we need to pass.
You get too busy doing standards and assessments, you can't really teach anybody anything.
Exactly.
You can't explain why that formula does what it does and why it does it and why you should use it and why it's so fascinating the way it works. You can't teach that kind of stuff if you have to go and get this test done and you got 6 tests to
Teachers are going to be busy
They're gonna
work,
expert
staying
test
up
takers.
with this process.
You're going to be an expert test
Kids
taker.
will be
or a teacher's
taking
gonna be an
Kale Pectec
expert
all the time for
test
nausea.
giver, and that's
Yes.
all you're going to get.
Yes, and good teachers have been leaving, a lot of good teachers, because they can see they're not going to be able to interject the things they know, their subject knowledge, these things. You know, we have a lot of teachers that have been great teachers in a system that isn't always great, but they're scattered out there. We've got good people that we need to be able to leave them in place and get some more that can think like that.
Well,
and teach teachers.
We have 1 minute ago. Dead Poets Society. That movie. I mean, that's the antithesis of what we're talking about, right?
Right.
The exact antithesis. Well, Linda, we have less than a minute to go. I want to thank you so much for being on our program. Would you please accept our invitation to return?
Sure, I'll do it.
Love to have you on the program.
Thank you,
again.
Joe.
There's so much to talk
You gotta
about.
fight this.
You know, it really is. You know, this is the end of today's broadcast, folks. We'd like to thank our sponsors for their financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends, and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. This is Joe Cristiano. You've been listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well, stay tuned.